So I just prepared a presentation just to give an overview of the tools that I'm going to discuss, and then we go live into those tools. So I selected from the available tools Elicit, Semantic Schoolar, Connecting Papers, and Scite, because they all do different things. And then, yeah, you get a bit of a range what is possible or what you need for your purposes, because it also depends on what your goal is with your literature review. So this Elicit, that is a paid tool, and we also look at that and what to pay attention to also, because you get some credits, and depending on what you do, the credits really go very quickly. But the nice thing is here you get like a notebook, so you can have different notebooks and other tools called libraries, so it's different names for what. But if you have different topics, you can not only just everything in one big library, but you can kind of also sort that into notebooks here. What we have in all tools is we can ask a question to find papers in kind of natural language. Sometimes it's still more like the old kind of search function, but basically you can kind of type in what you're looking for in a regular sentence, because it's now generative AI living behind it. And then what you can do in Elicit is extract information, whether it's a summary or the methodology, major findings. These are kind of default settings into a table format that you can also export to Excel. So maybe you have done that previously as well, but more manual and without the support of AI. Or you can also create your own tables, and we can try that out, where you basically enter a little prompt of what you want to see in your columns. You can also look for a list of concepts in the paper that you need to define up front, or chat with the papers. And that's, maybe I can already point that out here, because you often read with all of these AI applications, we are now able to analyze vast amounts of material, whether it's for analyzing data, or whether it's for literature review. We can now suddenly kind of very quickly grasp like 200 papers. Well, it's not really like that, because there is something that's called the context window, and depending on which LLM is behind it, but here it's ChatGPT for 120,000 characters, but this is roughly about 60 pages, something like that. So depending on the length of the paper, you have 4 or 5 papers, then you reach the context limit. And then we can also see that here. So you can, if you chat with all of your papers, then it will only chat with summaries. And that's kind of answers you will get that will be more shallow than if you go into more depths. And other tools, they only allow you to chat with one paper anyway. So, but yeah, just keep this in mind also. And I mentioned the costs here. If you ask questions across all of your papers, your credits. So the more context you're going to send to LLMs, or the more content, the more expensive it's going to be. And the last point is that's kind of a nice feature. You can kind of select a number of articles that you think might be relevant, and it will kind of write at least your first draft of the first section for your literature. But we all look at that live. This is just to kind of give you an overview here. So Semantic Scholars is it has a bit of a different functionality here, and also for looking into more depth into your paper. So here you can it's called library here, where you can collect your papers and search for your papers, and then you can ask questions to a singular paper, so one by one. And then you have a semantic reader, and that is a very nice thing if you want to get very quickly an overview of your article. So you can also see here it's not the focus of of working like this, lots and lots of material very quickly, but to work easier, but with selected articles. Yeah, and this was something that I was asked in the webinar that I gave at noon in German. So who is behind Semantic Schoolar, because it's free, and someone was asking why is that free and Elicit you have to pay money. It's from the Allen Institute for AI, and that's Microsoft that's behind it. And that is a truly genuine motivation behind it. And someone is saying, yeah, if it doesn't cost anything, you pay with your data. Well, these are, literature this is open access anyway. So, what kind of data would pay? Now, this is really the motivation is really genuine behind it. So where do they get their sources from web indexing or from scientific journals they have partnerships with, and I have included a link here so you can check what the partners actually are. So here you see one of the 4 value statements is that they want to promote equal access to science, and scientific knowledge should be available to everyone. We recognize the status quo disproportional benefits certain groups of scholars over others, and as a non-profit, they actually want to give people access. So it's really genuine motivation behind this one. But Elicit is basically a startup, and they're also using more AI, and yeah, they also have to pay for the access to the LLM, and that's also what the client has to pay for. But we see also, of course, that Microsoft, it's also ChatGPT that's behind here, and all the AI you work with is ChatGPT 3.5. And of course, it's easy for them to make this available because they own it. So yet another one is Scite, and here, yeah, there's a different angle that you look at. It's if you want to look for the most cited paper or the most important paper in your field, and maybe want to start from that, and based on the citations, you can look at who is referencing that paper, or whether they're just mentioning it, or whether they contradict findings that might be more interesting for empirical study or natural science studies. But we will see that it has a very different angle to it, and does something very different from the other 2 we have looked at before. And then the last one here, it's connected papers, and here's also the idea you start with 1 or 2 papers, and here you don't look at as different from here. You see who is citing that author from that article. Here you actually look at what other people are cited in a particular document, and you get a nice little network, and then you can look into all the other articles that are cited and have access to them, and can, if they're relevant, also download them and add them to your collection of papers that you look at. So you see, that's why I have chosen this variety of tools, so you get a little bit of a bandwidth. Yeah, I will kind of walk you through one example, and then Christian, as I said before, then maybe you can already think about what should be a question we can ask that is relevant for your research, and then I can kind of look at what we get out of that. So here I have been collecting in my library. That's what, of course, I'm doing at the moment. So I look at everything AI related and what people do with it in terms of qualitative data analysis. So that's kind of the papers I have been selecting here. And then it might already, when you do a first search, it gives you kind of this summary text, kind of pulling out what's in the papers. And that's what I said. You can also later on select a number of papers and take that as a basic for starting your literature review. Maybe let's first look at that goes at all the things that you can do. And then we can, we will do asking a question a bit later. But we can extract data from the uploaded papers. That's the table that you're going to see. We can actually look for concepts or create a new table. Yeah, so these are the options that you already have seen in my PowerPoint. So apart from the summary here, you get these table. Well, at the beginning, it's it's empty, but then you can you have the default options here. It's like main findings or a summary, a methodology. Yeah, and you see it's a bit geared more towards the natural science. You have like interventions here. Well, limitations are probably also meant in, in social science papers, but intervention effects, yeah, that's more different types of studies. But you can also see here that you can enter your own ideas here, so you can create your own columns. I'll show you that in a second. So you get a nice overview here about what this is all about, the main findings or methodology. I don't know where it's my browser, but I cannot, if I have something to the right, it's very difficult to scroll. I don't have my table is nothing. Yeah, it doesn't go more to the right, but you see, if you have more columns, it's kind of difficult to see. You also can have filters. Well, I've set a filter here to only show, me something here on papers that contain something with semantic, for semantic analysis in the title. But you can also set other filters here based on a certain range of years or whether you want to focus on other meta-analysis articles or whatever. So you can set some filters here. And yeah, and maybe that I should point out here, you see you will get some information if it has a bit low confidence, but you can also click on a cell and then it will give you the quotes or some ideas from the original source on which the main findings or summaries are based on. So that is a nice way of kind of checking where is something based on. And then you can also open that in the original paper. So that's one thing that you can do here to gain a quick overview. Yeah, you see, now I want to go to so I've been chatting with papers here. Collapses. So what you also need to know that these are fairly new tools. So not everything is perfect yet, and that we have these notebooks here that just came 1 or 2 weeks ago. So they are still building on improving those tools. And it's very different if you have a tool that already is available for a couple of years, that might be a bit more user-friendly, or, I think they are kind of still working on this. So here, you see I've asked a question on all 17 papers that I have now here in this particular library. And I ask what are the challenges that are discussed when using ChatGPT or an AI tool for qualitative data analysis. And what it does, if it chats with 17 papers, you see the option also here, use full text. Well, it doesn't work with 17 papers, because then you run out of that context when you will also, it will also tell you. So if you chat with a large number of papers, it will do that on summaries. And that's kind of obvious in the answer. You get kind of main points here, but it's, if you have been playing with ChatGPT, you kind of know that you kind of know the structure that you also get, and it doesn't go so much into depth. So if you want to go more into depth with something, then you should chat with fewer papers. And so I could now ask another question, continue my chat here, but on all 17 papers. And here I only chatted with 4 papers, and you see I did a full text search. And now at the left here, look at my credits. We can just look into my account here for a second. And then you can see here, extracted data from 17 papers, whoosh, 2,000 credit down. And I just uploaded for $10, 10,000 credits as more. So you can very quickly, I think, when you work with a large amount of papers, you quickly might be using like even $50 or $100 if you just work for a couple of days with it. So you have to keep this in mind. Working with LLMs is not a cheap thing to do, because yeah, and if you have papers, some papers might be 50 pages, so you send a lot of material and you basically pay by the tokens. So yeah, if you have 1,000 words, you might have 3,000 to 4,000 tokens. It's always like a word might be 2 tokens, might be 3 tokens. Well, maybe, yeah, it's probably not times 4, but between 2 and 3 times what the words in the document are. And then chat with the papers. That was, yeah, I think I chatted with all of the papers. That was immediately almost 4,000 tokens down. And we can look at this later when we do Christian's example. So how many credits that is going to be. So keep that in mind, and that's why also somebody asked before. So why is Semantic Schoolar free, and why do we have to pay money here? And again, this is all still evolving, and things might change in the future, but that is where we are now. And here, that's also when I show you. Here you have an option turn on high accuracy, and you see it immediately goes down to 150 credits if you turn on higher accuracy. You also, yeah, I think if you just want to have a quick brush and look into papers to kind of see what are good papers you want to work with or articles, maybe the superficial one is good enough. And you also save the credits for if you want to go into more depth with a few papers. So let's scroll down again to yeah, that is so I did some more questioning here. I can also tell you, because these are papers I've read, I know, and I wasn't, yeah, this author is quite positively about using ChatGPT for analysis, but he also was writing about some shortcomings. And when I asked for challenges, and it was always telling me it does not explicitly mention it. So you have to be, in a sense, you cannot immediately believe of what comes out. So you also should check back in the paper and should have an idea what this paper is all about, and not just saying, oh, these authors didn't mention any limitation, or they didn't mention anything about this or that. It might still be, but it might also be because in this chat, I chatted with 6 papers. And then what we also know from, and not only for literature review, just also generally, is that if the volume gets larger, that where you ask questions about, then especially ChatGPT kind of tends to look at the beginning and at the end and leaves out the middle. And that's also some of the problem we experience with summaries, that the summaries are not accurate because with long documents it tends to leave out the middle. So you could very likely improve quality if you don't chat with a large amount of papers. Just if you kind of say, okay, these are now 3 papers I'm looking at, and that you limit the number of documents that you chat with, unless you have, that the papers are very short. So now let us look at this table here. Yeah, I need to get to the header here. So you see here that it's not, yeah, I still have the main finding column here, but here now I have advantages and challenges. And now we're getting kind of getting out of space, but challenges for coding, data, fundamental shifts. So these were more questions I had about what I wanted to look at specifically in the papers. And you can do that by, so I can now add, now just do test, we can do a real example later. So, but the description is not important, but then the instruction. So basically, if you start looking for something specific, you would add here the prompt. If you have been playing around with any of these chatting tools, you're kind of familiar with that. But so it's not only here you enter challenges or you enter advantage, you enter really a prompt here that you direct the LLM what it should look for in your papers. And then you can produce these table overviews based on what you're looking for. And yeah, I would advise to create, not like, it also becomes also not very easy to see and read in Excel if you export it. Yeah, so you can export these tables.
And I would like to understand actually what's the source of search. So is it all the papers that are open access, of course, or is it all the papers that can be found in internet? And I have seen the filter, so you can give a filter of years, but is it the papers that are most easily to be found, open access, just in the internet, or what's the where is the software searching?
Elicit actually works on the source of Semantic Scholar. So that is basically also the papers it searches. And Semantic Scholar, yeah, as we have here, it's uses the web index and then the partnership with the journal. So Elicit actually makes use of the database that Semantic Scholar is.
And what's the database of Semantic Scholar?
Yeah, what it says here, the everything on the internet. So everything that you would also find via Google, and a lot of these if I click, I'm not in the presentation. Yeah, and that's for every tool. You should go into the FAQs and check what database it's behind it. So we did in the Germans seminar, of course, the people were looking more for German stuff. So I think, it's of course, yeah.
Oh, interesting. Wow. So it's Frontiers, Relay.
Okay. Yeah, also Springer,
Sage,
Chicago
PubMed.
Press,
Okay.
Sage.
PubMed. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks for that. And
and a lot of these preprint stuff are also here on archive.org.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And based on your experience, how tricky is the precise use of the prompts or the keywords? So is it how would you say, resilient to ambiguous expressions that you enter and finds anyway the right thing, or do you have to have a precise strategy to use the keywords, otherwise it doesn't work?
Also, to find my papers here, I tried different things. I said AI and qualitative research, and then I added ChatGPT, and then I added semantic analysis, and yeah. So but you can always add something on top, and then you can select the papers. Yeah. So I think it's also a matter of experience, and at some point, and of course, when you do it and then you get something that's not really what you're looking for, then because you're in your field and you kind of can evaluate what the outcome is. And I think it's a matter of a bit trial and error, but it doesn't, it's then you just ask another question, or you just give other keywords.
Could we ask a question related to the structure and dynamics of home gardens?
Of home gardens?
Yeah, structure and dynamics of home gardens.
Anything. I mean, we can just is there, because my experience is prompt is the more specific the prompts are, the better the answers are.
Okay, yeah. So
that's why I'm saying structure and home gardens of what I mean, type of structure.
What are recent findings of? So what are recent findings, and what is recent research on the dynamics or on the changes of the structures of home gardens? So I'm not on agrobiodiversity or plants, but how home gardens are structured, for example.
The dynamics of the structure.
Yeah.
Of home gardens. Well, we can just see what we get. We can always improve on that. So we have home gardens dynamics in India, the structure of home gardens in Guatemala. You wanted actually Europe. Well, we didn't add Europe now, but now we get all the.
Yeah. Anyway, interesting. Yeah. Okay. The sources I would see. Oh, it says the authors. Yeah. Okay.
And here you have. We can go, if you click here, we can go. So if the PDF is available, then you can also collect it from there and download it. Yeah. Of course, sometimes it's behind a paywall, so you can't download it. But so if the PDF is available, then this one is not available.
And if we add Europe, how would the result change? And if I understand well, so Elicit can do that. If you would use Semantic Scholar, connect papers, etc., it's more going in depth of the papers you have. This is more the overview, the like getting a table of what's there. But if you have something, then the other software would allow going more into detail of the
if you already
social
have
network of citations.
papers, you know, you have collected them already. That doesn't, you can also upload them here in order then to put them in tables or ask questions about it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So here we have, yeah, in Central Europe, European cities. So we, you know, we could also then, you know, because we now had these other papers, so we, you know,
Okay.
we can.
And do you know what the software, the AI search in the titles or in the titles and the summaries or abstracts?
No, it looks it. So basically, behind that, you actually have a couple of million papers. So it goes through the yeah. I think it looks it's looking at the abstracts. Yeah. Otherwise, I mean, it wouldn't go and look at the full text, because that would be too much to look at. But then in the next step, if we now look and say, you know, now we want the main findings, yeah, and now it looks into and then you see here the main findings, and if you click on here, now you see also where it's got this from. Yeah, so now you can see the relevant quotes, and you can, and then this helps you to evaluate how good these main findings are. Yeah. You know, I select now these 3 papers, and then let's go add next step. And then let's try our own table, summarize. Now we need quite a new table based on these 3 selected papers. And Christian, now you can ask actually a question. I mean, that is not method, it's not summary, it is not, I mean, what are something you would be interested in?
I mean, could I ask similarities and differences of, could I ask the software to create
Yeah,
a
we
table
can do that in the next step. We can do that in the next step. Now we can, this is now looking at a particular aspect, and you are the expert of home gardens, yeah.
Is commercialization of products a topic?
Yeah, I just write here commerce, yeah, and then we create commerce, and now we can ask a prompt here. It's commercialization. Yeah, but this is not, yeah, that's because, yes, what do the authors write
Say about commercialization.
Commercialization. I mean, spelling is often with LLM, they're quite good if you misspell the stuff. But let's see whether it's something on commercialization. But your questions are more actually into the chatting bit.
Okay.
Yeah, but it does here give you now. It's so busy. Yeah. Yeah, refers to commercialization or lack thereof with sustainable garden practice particular. So there is something on it in the papers. So it does find 7 relevant quotes.
Also, the software gives a reference in the cell of this column, and then tells you what's the basis, the evidence, which is the reference.
Yeah, that's the relevant quotes. Yeah. So yeah, it does. These quotes are only based on the summary of the paper. As you can see, it's always the same abstract, but different bits and pieces on it. And I suppose if you use that more expensive option, then it will go and look more deeper. And that the first bits it gets of the summary of the document. But let's now look at what you asked before. Not ask a new question. We want to chat with papers. We still need to select them again. So let's select these 3 papers. Now you can ask the question you want to ask before.
Yeah, so compared to the paper on Cillian, what are similarities and differences? I don't know if you can ask the question, but as an author, if I have worked on it, for the discussion, I would be interested if the other papers compared to my paper have similar or different findings. What are similarities and difference of the other papers? I don't know if you can ask that, but I would. And while it's working, another question. So
Yeah.
what about the debate on, how would you say it? So what about the ethical debate? So mentioning and explaining that you use the software for literature search and literature analysis. So is it state of the art saying, I have worked with Elicit in putting together my literature and analyzing, or not?
So you first get like a short text up here. The 3 papers discussed by in different contexts. All 3 papers highlight the significance of plant diversity. Influence of human management. Then you see the difference, context and types of garden, drivers of diversity, environmental concerns. Because I mean, in regard to your question, like I said, what we get here and what we pull out is only as good as our questions. So it's not that the AI is doing all the analysis. I mean, this is only pulling out, and you still need to, verify.
Yeah. Okay.
This, and yeah, now it's actually, now you can access here the entire paper and look into that. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Normal, I mean, if you used a tool for analyzing data, like how you would say you do statistical analysis and you did that with SPSS, or you use MapToday or Atlas, then you would cite the tool. But this is kind of, yeah, in a sense, if you go really into analyzing the papers, then you might, if you do a, not if you do a uses for your theory section. I mean, did we previously say in the library we used microfiche and we did this and that? No, we didn't. Yeah, that was also not something you needed to do. And I mean, now we can ask a natural language question. Before you were going into, your library and looked with keywords, or that you can still, partly do. You could also do for look for keywords here. If you do a meta-analysis, so if your entire paper is a meta-analysis of the literature, then you would cite the tool that you're using for that. But if you do that for your theory section in the paper, then it can be, so there's one aspect is that you cite it like this in the paper itself, and another one is to have a footnote in the document that you use the following AI tools to find papers, or that you don't cite it directly, but you mention it. There are some guidelines that start to appear.
Okay.
Yeah. And I can later send you a paper about that. So at least, I mean, it's all not written in stone. Everybody is still, trying to find some ways around it, but there's some first publication appearing, and at least you can use those as guidelines. At least we can have a reference and say this also suggests that we should do, and this is what you're doing.
Okay.
Yeah, now I want to actually look at Semantic Scholar here, which is free to use. I have also my library on my papers again. Of course, you can have multiple libraries again. Yeah, I was just reading, I just got an email and said, the most used function is the cite options. So you can very quickly, copy and paste the citation in whatever. Yeah, I think they have these 2 formats that you can use in your literature reference. But what I actually like about this one is a lot the way you can read papers. Well, you have the paper here, you have all the figures here. Hopefully I now picked a paper where it doesn't work with all papers, we'll see that. So here you can see, you can ask this paper, you can ask one question. So here it doesn't even allow you to ask questions about 20 papers because it's not really possible not because the tools don't provide that, because technically right now an AI or generative AI has a certain context window it can operate with. We have seen that Gemini 1.5, that's from Google, has a larger context window. And as I'm not sure whether you know, I'm also building my software. I own software right now for data analysis, not for literature review. And that's why, another thing or two about that. And then we said, oh, you know, with Gemini, you know, we could have maybe larger context window, but then it becomes incredibly expensive to, you know, yeah, you pay by tokens, and then if you say, oh, it's, you know, wonderful, I can just, you know, shoot 20 papers or even more, or articles or whatever, or 50 interviews to for a query, then yeah, then it's getting very quickly very expensive. So what we see here, you can ask one question at a time, and here I think also in terms of what you get back, that will be higher quality, because now it is focusing on that one paper, and with that it's called basically RAG, retrieval augmented analysis. If you ask a question about one particular document, and the quality is generally quite good, and it's not hallucinating, because it's just looking at that one paper right now. And yeah, of course, if you just ask general question about nothing, of course it might hallucinate, but we also see if you ask across a larger amount of documents and it hits the context window, and so you get an answer from the first 5 documents that are fine, and the other one, it's just completely making up because it kind of run into its own limits. And that's where we get issues of hallucination. I wouldn't be so worried about that if you just check with one paper. But what I really like here, yeah, we can do that with that paper, because otherwise it wouldn't show here, is a semantic reader. Because, or, no, with that one we can't. We can only read it here, well, in the semantic reader. But what you do have here, which is also nice, you have all the references here, and you can look it up. What are the other papers, and you get like a short summary of what they're referring. And then you could also, if you think, oh, that's a relevant paper, you can also start saving that in your library. Well, and you can also, you know, get the citation. Yeah, so that is a nice aspect as well, but I also wanted to show you something else. So I go into the settings here, and then you can quickly skim for goals, method, or results, or you can kind of say, well, I'm only interested in method and results, so you can see what you select. And these, so it kind of analyzes the paper, then what it thinks are goals and methods and results. And this allows you, yeah, a very quick read through the papers to kind of say, okay, I want to see what they found out. So these are a summary of the results. And then, okay, they used partnership with certain qualitative analysis. That's what they did. And that's what they found. And these throughout the paper. So that allows you a very, very quick kind of, yeah, as it says, skimming through the paper. Here we have another result, and then you can see, okay, on what is that based, because they kind of, in that paper, they go through various stages. Because you can also kind of scroll down here, and you see it also here in the paper, or you can do this here on the side. So I really like that way of, it's intuitively appeals to me. It may be different for everyone, but I think that's a very, very quick way actually to grasp what's in the paper, and especially if you're more familiar with the paper as well, and you kind of remind yourself of where things are in the paper. So I really like that feature here in the Semantic Scholar, and that's only what you get here. So we're already almost into the hour, but let's look at the Scite tool. Here, yeah, this is more about finding the highly cited article, very important articles in your field, but you can also check the references where they are okay. So I uploaded a document here, and it says no references with editorial concern. So you kind of know it's more about whether we have high quality papers here. And again, I have my libraries here with my papers, and yeah, and these are all these are papers from 23, 24. They're all quite new, so there's no trend, anything. But I quickly get an overview of the authors, and we know here one has, these have 3 papers from one author. They also, yeah, publish very quickly for papers. And so I don't have, because the papers are quite new, there is not so much referencing going on. I mean, at least not referred yet by other people, because some of them are also preprint. They're not yet properly published.
But here you started inserting a topic, or did
Well,
you?
you start, it's same with Elicit. I start a notebook, because now in your notebook we have the dynamics of garden home, and then we have all the papers within that notebook. Here, in your dashboard you can have different topics, because if this is on data analysis and I want to have it, maybe on approaches, and I want to have different aspects, and I want to not like having 200 documents, also as you can make sort of folders, as you can maybe do in Mendeley as well, to kind of sort and organize your literature a little bit better. And because then you can, if you add a search here, and here that's more like the normal search with like keywords, and then when you found something, then you can add it to any of your dashboards. It's called, they're called a dashboard, and then sort and organize your literature there.
I mean, it seems very similar, looks like very similar to Science Direct or Scopus, the established existing databases and adding some functions.
Yeah. Well, so what you can see here, this is cited by 4 publications. It itself has 52 publications and references. And then what you see here is that I can then check how this reference was used. So it will now actually go into the paper and show me. And you see that one is cited by 393 publications. So you get a long list here. And then, then you also, if you click on it, you can see in the paper how it was cited.
Yeah.
And so it's a very different approach of looking. It's not analyzing the content, but more looking, is it a well-cited paper, and who cites it and for what reason, and stuff like that. And the other thing I wanted to show you here is you can then, if you have a paper that has lots of references, and that doesn't work with very young papers, or it's referenced a lot, you can get this visualization. And then we can see here who is, where this is all cited. We can go through here and we see all, in which publication this also is cited, or we can also then look at, any citations here in the network. Oh, we need to click on that. Yeah. And then it will show us we need to click on the dot here, and then it will show us that other paper, and we can look that up and say, now let's look at the full text. And then of course you can also bring it into your library. Well, what we see here is that Brown and Clark is cited all over the world, because it's in all kinds of different languages, which I don't understand. But anyway, so you kind of see it's more into like starting with one paper which might have been very influential, and see who has all cited it. So that is one way of looking at it. And now the last thing, the connect to paper one, goes the other way around. It actually looks at, and if you now look at the connected papers, it's the one that are referenced in the paper. And that's something, basically, I think also in the old days, what we always did is we started with a few papers in the library, looked at what other authors were referenced, and took that as a starting point to then extend your literature review. So in Scite, it's more like who has cited that paper. Here it's which other authors or which other papers did that author cite, and then you can click here on all these bubbles, and it will show you the other literature that was cited, and you can take it from there. You can look at it. You can basically, it's endless, because now you can click on Open Graph and see who they cited.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, and this one you can get 5 of these networks for free, and then they charge you something like, depends on if you buy a whole year, it's like €3 per month. And over €5 per month if you buy it for 3 months. So it's rather less. You can say, I want to use it. I find that interesting. So I just, pay one time €50, and then I can access that for a year. endlessly, so to speak. Yeah, so I think the most expensive one is really Elicit, because once you do start asking questions, you run through credits quite quickly.
In a world of data